Sexy cybergoth dommy mommy android assassin lady? A dark, brooding, melancholic, monotone city? Gory, nihilistic, biomechanical violence? Why, I dare say that's all a guy could ask for in a woman. I mean a filmographic piece of fine art. Yeah. God, I've ruined my career. If you associate yourself with the cyberpunk genre or the anime community in any significant capacity, then you'll likely be at least somewhat familiar with the classic dystopian cyberpunk anime of the 1990s. And a couple months ago, yes, I know I'm late, Mother Chat, don't scold me, I dove headfirst into one of the great classics, the one, the only, that ever it has been and ever will be,
Ghost in the Shell.
So, to give you kind of a brief synopsis of this movie, the story follows an institution called something along the lines of the Internal Bureau of Investigation. Please no shake camera. And so we follow these characters, one of them being the sexy cybergoth dommy mommy android assassin lady. Not gonna lie, I don't remember her name. And then a couple of other characters who work in the IBI. And they live in a very technological future where a virus that is able to take control of people's cybernetic brains and alter their memories and I think like kind of control them and stuff is this virus, the Puppet Master, is on the loose. And in a world where everything, and I mean like everything, relies on technology far more than it does, to a far greater extent than it does in our world and society today, it's pretty bad for that guy to be loose. Yeah, and so one of the biggest appeals, I think, in the cyberpunk genre is the setting, how the story takes place normally in a cyberpunk city, a very technological, futuristic city. And this movie in particular takes place in kind of Hong Kong, parts of Hong Kong and Japan. I want to say most of it is Hong Kong, which I actually, before I realized it was Hong Kong, probably because I missed the subtitle, it reminded me a lot of Hong Kong, specifically because of Kowloon, which if you look up Kowloon, or if you're familiar with Call of Duty Black Ops 1, you'll probably have heard of that map. That, I want to play that map again. But anyway, it's very reminiscent of a very rundown, futuristic, technologically dependent Hong Kong. And especially something along the lines of Kowloon, which if you actually look into Kowloon, even just a little bit, it's like terrifying that actually exists to begin with. But it's very reminiscent of that. As for the characters, I don't feel particularly like this was a very character-driven narrative. I feel like the majority of the story in this movie is to serve the purpose of the themes. So the characters do a good job of picking up the mantle of their role. Like, the characters fill their roles well within the story, but I personally didn't feel like a strong emotional connection with the characters, or like that was even the purpose, right? It's almost easier to get lost in the city than it is in the characters. And of course, being both an animated film and falling within the cyberpunk genre, this film focuses pretty heavily on its visuals and its aesthetics. And I feel as though it's on par with the majority of the great cyberpunk anime of the 1990s, which is to say that it's really good. It's really good. It was just so perfect, man. It was just delectable. I just couldn't get enough. It was just fantastic. Yeah, my only qualm, I think, with the visuals is uh a bit more subjective for sure, but I find that it's very monotone and very like uh melancholic is accurate, but it's not quite the right word, because I can like a melancholic setting. It's just it's very visually dull and visually dark. I think it's more visually dull than it is dark. Um it like there's not a lot of contrast throughout. Uh, a lot of it is just very dull colors, and then like grays and blacks and browns and whites and stuff. Uh, so there's not a lot of color, which I feel like is suitable to the setting, but it's kind of like with certain scenes and some of the art for like Elden Ring and the Dark Souls games. For me personally, it's way too visually dull and like visually dark. It's there's not enough contrast. But it was still, I think, th- I don't think that takes away from the fact, frankly, that it is beautiful. Like it has a lot of artistic direction. And I did, speaking of the visuals, uh, the animation is also part of that, and the animation quality. I didn't think that the animation, as in like the frame to frame movement, was actually that good. It could just be that I got like a less stable copy, because I'm pretty sure I watched it in SD sitting like 2 feet away from my 4K monitor. Um so like it could just be that uh circumstantial, that the animation felt a little choppy. But regardless of whether it was circumstantial or not, whether that aspect of it was circumstantial or not, I don't think that takes away from the art direction of the film or the artistic beauty of the film. And also, I just want to add in that like atmosphere, while like it can be a visual thing, it's also not. And the atmosphere and the aesthetics in this film are, I think, line up very well with the genre and with the themes that it's exploring. Like, there not being a lot of contrast, it being visually kind of drab and dull, even when there are like lights and stuff, right? That's like even though that's personally not super enjoyable, and maybe even to people who love the genre it's not enjoyable, but it kind of drives home that theme, that idea that like, oh, this isn't really that good of a place. Like all the stuff there is to do, all the vice in the city, all the escapes you can take, and just all the activities you can indulge in are all in a weird way to get away from the city while you're in the midst of the city. So I think it definitely kind of uh I it definitely handles the film on the whole definitely handles the atmosphere really well, I think. Speaking of the visuals, there are two kind of like little sub facets of the visuals that I think are important to highlight. So for one, the gore and the violence and the action. So I think the gore, like biomechanical, like cybernetic X flesh gore was a highlight. Like it was very, it was far less frequent than I expected it to be, but it was way more brutal and interesting when it did happen. And personally, when I'm like watching films and stuff, I'm not too it's not super jarring to see stuff like that. So it's like if you aren't super phased by that sort of thing, and you like actually take a minute to look at like the flesh and the tech being ripped apart, it's really interesting, and it's really intricate. And the same can be said for the technology in general on the whole. It's really intricate. There's a lot of detail, and it's really neat. It also, I think, kind of builds more on the themes and the atmosphere. It's pretty unsettling to see like this person did this to themselves, like put all this technology, like mutilated their body to incorporate all this technology into themselves, and like now you see that getting torn apart. The action, however, I didn't actually find that intense. Because like the gore or the violence or whatever is like separate, I feel like, from the action. Like you can have something be very tame violence wise and still be very action packed. I mean, just look at sports anime, for instance. But anyway, the like I didn't find, for me personally, that there were a lot of moments that is like, oh, it's like Demon Slayer season 3. He's got the sword. He's got the sword of the pencil. He's about, what's about to happen? Whoa, that's crazy, dude. This is like JJK season 2. Yeah, I just didn't get those vibes. Like the violence was very intentionally placed to support the themes and the story and the setting, and to be uncomfortable and unsettling. So there wasn't really room for hype action. And I think that's fine, I don't have an issue with that for the purpose of the film. There's also going back to like the escapism of the world, and how kind of like how vice ridden the city is. There's a lot of the female characters, such as the sexy goth Dami Mami shadow assassin lady, are like pretty often portrayed in the nude, which is a little uncomfortable. And it's also like, I think, kind of adds more to the themes of the vice-ridden city, and kind of what I've talked about already with escapism and stuff. The themes in general, on a broader scale, it deals a lot with like human versus machine, and like when does a computer virus become a human? Does a computer virus become a human? And I think it has a very interesting exploration of some of those topics. And while I may not necessarily agree with some of the like conclusions, some of the like directions it points you toward like by the end of the movie, I still think it is a good exploration of human and machine. As for the soundtrack, I don't really remember a whole lot about the soundtrack or the music. I just remember it felt suiting to the aesthetic and the themes and stuff. Once again, same with a lot of stuff, but it wasn't something that I'd be like, oh dude, that shit was hype. Like the Doom soundtrack, bro, I want to listen to that again. I'd listen to that without actually playing the games. I would. It's good. But like it soundtrack for that I don't think was like that. Now for the thing that most people don't care about, but I like to discuss. So I didn't see the English dub. I saw like a tiny bit in the trailer. And what I saw of the English dub was abhorrent. So don't watch the English dub. The Japanese voice acting I thought was decent. It wasn't anything to obviously, like I know a little bit of Japanese, but not that much, but I can like kind of detect differences in voices. And so like I I really didn't think it was anything special. It wasn't the voice acting wasn't a highlight, but it wasn't abhorrent like the English dub was. So yeah, watch the Japanese dub. Do not watch the English dub first, anyway. Also, if you guys have seen the full English dub and you have a different opinion, let me know what you think. I'd be interested to hear your take on that. But yeah, so bleh. I was initially gonna give this like a little lower on the Goober score, but like after really kind of analyzing it, it's a very like tight knit story, and everything. It's a very theme driven story, and everything really ties really well into building on that theme up through the end of the movie. So yeah, it's the writing, regardless of how much I personally like it, the writing is really good. So kind of mixing my subjective and objective thoughts on the quality of this film, I'm gonna give this a whopping 7 out of 10 on the Goober score. And song of the video, "Ode to Sleep" by 21 Pilots. I haven't heard that song in a minute, but that album is a banger, if you ask me. 21 TOP haters go bye-bye. But yeah, consider subscribing and liking and all that jazz. And I'm gonna yeah, I'll be back eventually. Hope you enjoyed it. It's a been your boy Fiskitti, and I'll see you in the next one. Johnny. She is like a giraffe.